September 23, 2006 was the day the boxing world knew Arthur Abraham was a force to be reckoned with.
From the opening bell, this match was competitive as both fighters continually landed damaging punches. Midway through the fourth round, Miranda broke Abraham's jaw.
His jaw's broken.
From the fourth round on, in his bout with Edison Miranda, Abraham battled through an excruciating further 8 rounds where he went on to win a decision. Abraham remained undefeated for his first 31 fights and looked pretty much unbeatable at the middleweight division due to his size and rugged tough man style. Arthur's losses started racking up once he made the decision to compete at the super middleweight limit, but in doing so, he always showed a brilliant chin and resilience against some of the sport's best fighters.
Okay, you alright? Are you okay? You too? Yeah, I'm good. It's a fight game. It's a fight game.
Marion Wilson is the only fighter listed that would be labeled in the journeyman category due to the fact he lost over 20-plus fights to current and former world champions.
Marion Wilson, a veteran who has not won many fights lately, but always gives these youngsters a tough time.
A staggering record of 12 wins and 41 losses tells you everything you need to know about Marion. He fought some of the greatest punchers of his era like Ray Mercer, Shannon Briggs, Ika Biabuchi, and Samuel Peter, all without being knocked down a single time in his career.
He is battering Marion Wilson around.
To have such a poor record without any KO defeats is mind-blowing and definitely warrants him a spot here today. There has never been 4 single words uttered by a commentator to sum up a career better than those spoken by the late, great Emanuel Stewart. The all-action brawler is often credited as one of boxing's greatest in-ring spectacles ever. Fight after fight, he entered the ring with one thing on his mind: to entertain the fans.
This one drops in! Forget about it! It's ecstasy! Astonishing! This is not just a dream, it's a wet dream of orgasmic proportions!
Gotti might not have had a chin on the same caliber as others mentioned here today. He was indeed knocked down on the odd occasion, but it was his ability to absorb punishment while consistently firing back shots of his own that makes him the legend he is.
But along the way, realized, wait a minute, I can take a punch and rally back and win. And the crowd likes it better when I do that.
And he heard the roar of the crowd. That's really what changed him.
No question.
Carl Froch, like Gotti, was another fighter not exactly known for his technique, but rather raw aggression, conditioning, and a granite chin.
And Carl Froch makes an impact that will send shockwaves around the world!
A career spanning 12 years saw Froch take to the ring 35 times, where he lost only 2. One being a robbery in my opinion, and the other a noble effort to the rising superstar Andre Ward.
A little bit. About 8 cameras got it.
There's absolutely no way you can knock me out. No chance.
A stacked resume saw Carl compete with boxing's best. He was often the man with inferior skill, but he made up for it with his granite chin and determination.
Even though everybody thought you had a great chin, now it's become known as the chin. One of the best chins in all of boxing at this point.
Whether you're a hardcore boxing fan or not, chances are you've seen this knockout on more than one occasion.
Right hands. And now Mercer on Morrison in the corner. And Mercer's all over him. And Morrison in trouble. And Morrison goes down for the first time.
90s heavyweight Ray Mercer was as brutal as his highlight reel suggests. He has countless knockouts where he truly lived up to his nickname of Merciless. But his offense aside, he could also mix it up with the biggest and baddest guys around without ever coming close to being hurt.
They're fighting in a phone booth, and that's the way he wants it.
Burt Cooper, Tommy Morrison, Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, they were all ferocious offensive fighters in their own right, but none of them could put a dent in Mercer.
Yes, I'm telling you, Ray Mercer's got a tough chin, boy. When they said he's got a tough chin, because I hit him with some shots and I felt it in my hand, and he kept coming.
It makes a change for us to be able to mention the former 2-time welterweight champion Antonio Margarito without bringing up his infamous scandals.
As further proof of his argument that Margarito used the exact same hardened wraps in both bouts.
During his prime years, he was a ferocious competitor that took it hard to every opponent he faced. The punishment he withstood from Pacquiao, Cotto, and Paul Williams speaks volumes for the Warrior's chin. The brutal beatdown from Manny Pacquiao resulted in a broken orbital bone, which he never fully healed from, but he continued to fight anyway, just adding to the gutsy reputation he's built up over the years.
Lasting all 12 rounds, but Pacquiao was dominant in claiming a unanimous decision victory.
Not only one of boxing's greatest punchers of recent years, but one of the toughest men to ever do it, period.
Heavyweight destroyer, Vitaly Klitschko wants to be your man. He wants to be your man right now. Big right hand lands again. Johnson having trouble fighting back.
Vitaly Klitschko, brother to the long-reigning champ Vladimir Klitschko, is often overlooked in lists like these. But anyone who's ever shared a ring with him will tell you of the breathtaking resilience and conditioning he brought to the ring.
Vitaly was the aggressor, breaking Lewis apart with precise, sharp punches.
A career of 47 fights saw Vitaly only lose twice, but both of them which should be written with an asterisk next to them. His first loss to Chris Bird was a direct result from a torn rotator cuff. His second came to Lennox Lewis, where he put up an almighty war before being stopped due to a horrendous cut, which he wasn't too happy about, to say the least.
Isn't it fair to say tonight, Lewis wins the fight, Klitschko wins the event?
I think yes, it is.
He was a tall, straight-up type of fighter who often took as much as he gave, but was never knocked down in an entire career, a feat only a select few other fighters in history can claim. Panama Al Brown is the oldest featured boxer on the list, but that's not the only thing that makes him unique. Panama was a career bantamweight, but had freakish characteristics that seem almost impossible to get your head around. He stood at nearly 6 foot and had a reach of 76 inches. For those who don't quite understand how extraordinary that is for a bantamweight, he stood taller than the heavyweight champions Mike Tyson and Rocky Marciano, and had an identical reach to the former champion Joseph Parker, while competing 12 weight divisions below them. Amazing, I know, and this was undoubtedly a major factoid behind why he was never KO'd in over 150 fights as a pro, becoming the first Latino champion in boxing history along the way.
So Brown retains his title and registers his 212th win.
Sometimes it takes more than just another man to defeat a great boxer, and that was certainly the case for the Mexican warlord Julio Cesar Chavez, who was only ever beaten by time rather than an opponent.
Oh, brother, a combination, and down goes Hogan!
The all-action star remained unbeaten throughout his first 89 fights and went to war countless times in between, where he showed an uncanny chin and toughness. It wasn't until 80 or so fights in where we started to see cracks in his game. Chavez was knocked down and beaten by Frankie Randall, and then later punished by the young up-and-coming Oscar De La Hoya. But it would take more than a couple of blips to erase the memory of Mexico's greatest ever champion.
Advantage here, we'll see how he uses it. Tua with a big left hook, and Ruiz in trouble. Tua comes right at him, another big bomb, and Ruiz is down. This could almost be over now.
When you look back at the career and resume of David Tua, it's amazing to think he never captured a world title. The New Zealand heavyweight is regarded by many as one of boxing's hardest ever hitters. He destroyed the former and future world champions John Ruiz, Hasim Rahman, and Michael Moore with brutal ease.
To go back to working. That's it! It's a short right hand! That is the face of shock and awe there.
That aside, much of his career is also highlighted with some granite chin moments. His fight with Ike Ibeabuchi, for example, is often listed as one of the best hidden gems in heavyweight history. They broke the world record for the most punches thrown in a heavyweight fight at close to 2,000, where most were landed on Tua's chin. Tua also had some bruisers with David Izon and Lennox Lewis, but wasn't knocked down until right at the end of his career, where he got back to his feet and duked out a draw.
Evander Holyfield, confident, relaxed, cool.
If this list was just about ranking boxers on nothing but their warrior instincts, I have no doubt I'd rank Evander Holyfield number 1.
Looking at a sports legend in the purple trunks, Evander Holyfield.
The give-and-take warrior forced his body up in weight to compete with the real killers of the 90s heavyweight division.
I can't believe what I'm saying.
Holyfield was a highly skilled boxer in his prime, but if someone was willing to stand toe-to-toe and slug it out with him, he was more than happy to oblige. Big punchers like Alex Stewart, George Foreman, and Lennox Lewis landed their bombs on him without a budge. Heck, he even took the best Mike Tyson had to offer before proving to the world he was the better man.
Oh, a straight right combination by Holyfield. Holyfield looking to air it out.
Holyfield's unloading now. He's taking a shot. He's going for it.
Oh, Tyson's in trouble.
Evander did eventually meet his match against Riddick Bowe, where he was floored and beaten, but as all great warriors do, he bounced back and became champion once again.
After the second round, I understand it is not boxing. I need street fight, just broke him.
Very rarely Can you say a boxer has never been floored in sparring, in the amateurs, and in the pros? But that's a feat Gennady Triple G Golovkin carries with pride.
And that's it, because I don't feel power, I don't feel... Yeah, he touched me, and I don't feel.
The current undefeated middleweight is credited as having the most uncrackable chin in boxing today, and he's faced some powerful guys like Curtis Stevens, David Lemieux, Danny Jacobs, and Canelo Alvarez. Gennady has an eerie calmness in the ring, where he never panics and simply sticks to the game plan of being the walk-forward aggressor hunting for his KO. Whenever he does get clocked, he often laughs it off and uses body language to suggest, "Is that all you got?"
No, he never hurt me. He like points like tick, 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 tick. He's nothing,
However Gennady's career ends, I have no doubt he'll always be remembered for having one of boxing's greatest ever chins.
Lewis unbeaten, remember, after 25 fights. Oh, he's got him! Oh, Lewis walked into a right hand, and that was the sucker punch that they worried about.
Can you imagine having to fight a prime Mike Tyson? How about fighting him every day for weeks on end? Well, that's exactly what the Atomic Bull, Oliver McCall, did back in the late 80s. McCall, amongst a few select others, became the only man to be able to withstand a full training camp with Mike Tyson, and the toughness it brought him paid dividends in his own pro career down the line. Just like Triple G, McCall is another boxer that has been rumored to have never tasted the canvas in sparring, as an amateur and as a pro. But for a top heavyweight in that time period, it's somewhat more impressive in my eyes. His life was riddled with substance abuse and mental illness, which affected his boxing career majorly, and in spite of that, he'll still be remembered for having one of the best chins in heavyweight history.
Because I really didn't get hit, and I really wanted to actually get hit.
Whenever anyone asks me about Marvelous Marvin Hagler, I always tell them the same thing. No middleweight, past or present, would be able to handle the sheer ferocity of this man in his prime.
It was about war with Hagler.
It's a mental toughness, and that's what I feel. War, that's what's on my mind.
Once Hagler retired in '87, rumors started flowing around suggesting he had an abnormal-sized skull that allowed him to endure more punishment than your average man. It kind of makes sense, considering every punch he took pretty much rebounded straight off him. Hagler also used to train the temple muscles with a specialized jaw workout and had abs of steel that made it impossible to hurt him downstairs.
Keeping the pressure on it, he caught a left counter. Another left counter from Mugabe, and Hagler won't move back. A test of wills, finally. Mugabe driven back to the ropes.
During his career, he fought some murderous punchers like John Mugabe, Thomas Hearns, and Roberto Duran, all of which tried their hardest to break him, but fell short, along with the 60 others that tried. I don't want to hurt nobody, just smack him around and let him know who's boss. That's one of my favorite quotes from our number 6 fighter, Maxie Rosenblum, who had a career of close to 300 fights where he was stopped only twice. Sometimes when you look back on these stats, it's easy to overlook just how many rounds and punches it takes to acquire these sorts of numbers. More so in Maxie's case, who only stopped 19 opponents in his 207 wins, which means more rounds and more punishment.
So right up to end of his staggeringly huge career, he maintained fighting huge numbers of fights. 145 fights against top 10 rated opponents.
Randall Tex Cobb will always be remembered for 3 things. He could punch, he could take a punch, and he knew how to laugh it all off once the day was through.
Y'all may have seen the fight. I run out of time. Oh, I had him. Another 15, 20 rounds, he couldn't do that kind of pace. There was no doubt. He was tired. You think it's easy kicking my ass all night? You're wrong. Ask the man.
The 80s heavyweight fought an array of big punchers from Ernie Shavers to Ken Norton, but the one he'll always be remembered for was his brutal 15-round destruction with Larry Holmes, where he was beaten black and blue for every second of every round. The fight is often regarded as the most one-sided fight in boxing history without being stopped. So brutal, in fact, the legendary boxing commentator Howard Cosell gave up his job the same night after repetitively saying he would never cover the sport again unless the ref stopped the fight. Yeah, it was really that bad.
I'm hungry. I ain't eaten leather in a long time.
Once again, the greatest makes the top 5 in a boxing video. But instead of it being for his speed or resume, it's to honor his ability to take a thudding blow. It's not exactly tasteful to watch back and edit clips of Muhammad Ali taking punches, considering his medical condition in later life. But to his credit, he barely took a shot for the first 10 years of his career due to his incredible speed and where Ali started having long grueling wars with the likes of Joe Frazier and Ken Norton, which still to this day are hard to watch due to the sheer ferocity of them. Without a doubt, Ali has the most battle-hardened resume in heavyweight history, and it didn't stop until the early 80s, where he was finally put to rest by Larry Holmes and Trevor Berbick, who retired him from the sport in the most brutal way possible.
And it only stands to reason that if a football player trains to mete out punishment and also to absorb punishment, that same philosophy should be in the boxing game.
Some of which were almost too brutal to show you. A 20-year boxing career saw Chuvalo earn the honor of being branded with top 5 chin of all time by pretty much every boxing writer and historian, something he's more than happy to embrace.
I'm kind of unusual in the sense that I've never ever kissed the canvas, never been knocked down in my 97 pro fights, and I'm kind of proud of that.
Big George Foreman is a hard one to rank, considering his career was cut in two with 10 years in between, but my main focus for him today will be for when he returned to the ring in the late 80s as an immovable object. From 91 to 94, he engaged in multiple battles that saw him take at least 5,000 blows from the likes of Evander Holyfield, Tommy Morrison, Alex Stewart, and Michael Moore, the latter making everything worthwhile as he became the oldest heavyweight champion in history. As much as I love watching young George, bowling guys over in the 70s, there is something that warms my heart watching him compete as an older man, testing the young up-and-coming fighters' will in the ring.
And I've got a few things going for me, mostly 256 pounds. I'm going to use those pounds too.
There was one man who stood in Robinson's way in his quest for greatness. One man he could never quite dominate like every other challenger.
LaMotta was a man of the streets. Sugar Ray Robinson was the epitome of the classy fighter. LaMotta was not the fighter who took 2 to land 1. He took 5 to land 1. And if you missed Jake, you know, you'd be insulted.
Second time I beat him. The other fights, I had him down in 3 different fights, and I didn't get this decision.
Robinson was on top from the outset, but LaMotta's front-running style remained a constant problem.
And Ray Robinson beat Jake LaMotta up as badly and brutally as a man has ever been beaten without going down. I was gifted with a hard head, I guess, but I never went down. I always thought about it. I said, if they're gonna stop this fight, they're gonna stop this fight on my feet. So I was on my feet when he was pounding me up against the ropes and I couldn't do nothing, but I wouldn't go down. And they stopped the fight. Good thing they stopped the fight because I might have got killed.
Jake LaMotta, sadly, passed away on September 19th, 2017, and this video is a tribute to him.